Natalie, welcome. And welcome back to the Ryan Robertson Show. We were here last week and we were doing some content for Multiply Property Group.
Yep.
And for those of you that don't know, Natalie is the licensee of Multiply Property Group, and I have the absolute honour to work with and alongside Natalie in the sales department of Multiply. And Natalie approached me for a job. And I tried to say no, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. So there you go. And then when I told Natalie, I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting this podcast," and Natalie said, "Well, I have to come on." And then I said, "Hey, Nat, come on." And then you actually started to play a bit hard to get.
I did.
Yeah. But welcome to the show, Natalie. Today's all about you, and I want to learn everything about you. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the audience, and let's get to know who Natalie Jardim is.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. So, Nat Jardim. First of all, I'm a mother, which is, I guess, my biggest and most rewarding role. So I've got two beautiful boys. Also married, live in Perth, lived all my life in Perth, so love Perth. And currently, obviously, a business owner. I run Multiply Property Group. And we've had Multiply for 19 years, and it's kind of evolved based on what we were doing in our lives and how we thought we could help other people. But yeah,
I really love the story about the brand, and I must say that whoever you got to use to do up your logo and the color palettes, they've absolutely nailed that. So I'm sure that wasn't cheap. But before we jump into Multiply and everything that you guys do, I want to know a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Are you an only child? Do you have lots of siblings? Portuguese, I believe, is your heritage.
It is, yes. Yep, so grew up in Perth. I won't say my age, but many, many, many years ago.
Yes.
I've lived in Perth all my life.
What suburb did you grow up as a kid?
Yeah, so we were in Hamilton Hill.
Yep.
Which back in the days was a bit of a Bronx area, so a bit of a rough area. So lived in Hammy Hill, eldest of four kids, both parents are Portuguese. Being the eldest, I think there is a bit of responsibility, put on you to help out and, with the other kids and whatever else. And I was a little bit cheeky growing up and quite active. So, but grew up in Hamilton Hill. So Coburn, Fremantle area was my stomping ground. I went to an all-girls school in high school because Mum thought she'd try and make me a lady because I was very much a tomboy back in the day. So went to Iona, and then once I graduated, I went to uni and decided I would study teaching. So I was a teacher for 7 years in the Catholic education.
Junior, primary, primary?
Primary.
Yep.
Yeah, so primary school teacher.
Which actually, on that point, we have a mutual friend.
We do.
One of my best friends, Lee Crutchley. Shout out to Lee, ex-Submariner mate of mine. I was scrolling on Facebook, as I do, and then I see his beautiful wife come up and your comment on her photo, and I went, where's the connection here? And it turns out that you taught their youngest?
Yeah, younger sister.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Small world.
It is. And it's quite funny when you see your students who are like 8 or 9, all of a sudden, in their 30s with the family, it makes you feel very old.
Yeah.
So taught for 7 years, was doing property on the side, and then transitioned into coaching, property coaching, and then.
And that was probably pre-COVID or during COVID that you got into the coaching?
That was I was doing coaching back in like 2007. So
okay. Oh, geez, right before the GFC.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone at home is good at maths, but we're starting to slowly calculate Natalie's age here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
No, you're welcome. So, did you always want to own your own business? Obviously, it's quite you're going into teaching and then getting into coaching, which I mean, I guess teaching, coaching, very similar.
Yep.
But then now at what point was the pivotal mark in your career where you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this my way?
Okay. So with the coaching side of things, absolutely loved it. And it was an easy transition from teaching into coaching. It probably was, and a great transition, I think, as well, from going, with teaching children who have to go to school, and then having, teaching people that have the choice to be there and to learn. So it was a different experience, but it was also enabling me to, teach my passion, which is property. So, so that was really exciting. And I did that for quite some time, probably about 10 years maybe all up. Then I just started getting tired of it. And what I found with coaching is a lot of it's actually emotional. You can give everyone all the tools. You can teach them, I guess, the strategies and all of that. But if they're not ready for whatever reason and they don't pull the trigger, then it's all for nothing. So I was getting a little bit frustrated, and there's an 80-20 rule, where 20% will actually do anything. So by the end of the program, which was a 12-month program, so it's a big investment, mentally, emotionally for the clients and also for myself. And if they didn't take that action, it was very frustrating. So from that, I had people who I had coached who came back and said, look, I've got all the tools now. I understand the strategies. I know what I need to do. However, I just don't have the time, or my business is my priority and I love my business and I don't want to take, the foot off the pedal to jump into property. Can you help me? And so I kept getting, can you help me? Can you help me, find the property, as opposed to actually teaching me the strategies. So that's where we transitioned then into, it wasn't originally Multiply, it was called Subpro back in the day, but transitioned into more of that buyer's agency role where I would go and source properties for clients and help them negotiate it.
Now, is buyer's agency a thing that's been around for a long time in the West Australian market? I feel like it's very common now.
It is, yeah.
But surely back then it wasn't really a thing.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
So I think there was probably four established buyer's agents in Perth. And the teams weren't very big, so I was one of the dinosaurs. Yeah.
Right. So, compared to now, the market's flooded with them.
It is, yeah. It is flooded with them. A lot of Eastern State buyer's agents have now transitioned into the Perth market as well, which, I find a little bit strange considering that we do have buyer's agents here.
Yeah.
On the ground.
Yeah, odd, isn't it? Someone buying a house that doesn't live in the area and then probably relying on the agent to give them good feedback.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of a sticky one. Not to discourage, I'm sure they're doing some great work.
No, I'm sure there's great ones out there. Yeah.
So, Natalie, then you got into real estate, or you started to drift into real estate in that section? What were some of the challenges that you're facing from the start?
In relation to real estate or in relation to business?
Well, I guess there's a couple there because you're probably going through a career change, and if anyone's gone through a career change, it's very daunting.
It can be.
Essentially starting all over again. It leaves your sense of purpose or your identity. You've gone from being a teacher to now a business owner. That's got to bring its own challenges. So I guess broadly, and then if there was probably something that stands out, we could probably dig into that. But from the get-go, what gave you that motivation to first even consider stepping into it?
Yep. So I guess initially I've always had a passion for real estate. I think my passion came from my mum. So you know how I told you we grew up in the Bronx, in Hammy Hill.
Natalie, I grew up in Frankston. And I'm not sure if there's any Eastern States listeners, but I wouldn't say it's the Bronx. Frankston's beautiful. I love Frankston. But, right next door is a suburb called Mount Eliza. And if you lived in Mount Eliza, you were quite the upper class. But if you lived in Frankston, Carrum Downs, you were considered all the Pines. My nana lived on Excelsior Drive in the Pines, and I played footy for the Pines. Yeah, it's I understand what you're saying, yes.
Yeah, Hammy Hill isn't the Bronx either, but it's just what we would say back in the day.
Yes.
So, but Mum always had this thing of nice new homes. So a lot of the homes we lived in were older homes. Their first house was a brand new house that they built, which was beautiful. And Dad sold that house to get into his business. So he was a crayfisherman. So he sold that to get into crayfishing. And I know when he was selling that, I remember being very young I must have probably been about 8 or 9. I didn't want them to sell the house because I love the house, and I'm sure my brothers and sisters didn't want them to sell the house. And I think to some degree my mum didn't want to sell the house. So it was a big thing to sell that. And then once we did sell it, then obviously we moved into an older home, a smaller home. And so Mum would drive up into the more affluent areas and she would go through all the display homes and she would take me with her. So I would walk through all these beautiful homes and think, oh, gee, one day I wish I could have a beautiful home. And I think that's where my love of real estate started, looking at these beautiful homes and then trying to work out, is there any way that I could actually have a beautiful home? So on my weekends, I would renovate homes, flip homes and things like that while I was teaching. And it came to a point where Abel and I we were making more money doing that than we were in our day jobs. So the transition was, I guess, easy at the time because I had been approached by someone to work for them under their company to start with as a coach, and then that enabled me then to do my own property deals on the side before we started our own business. So in that regards, it was an easier transition. In saying that, there was a lot of people that told me I was crazy, leaving a full-time position. It's only 7 minutes from home. It was pretty much, I got my dream teaching job on my first gig. So a lot of people couldn't understand why I would leave that. But it was.
Geez, that must have been challenging because I'm sure there's many people have been in a similar circumstance where your career's given you this opportunity that you've really obviously worked hard to get.
Yep.
You now get it, and then something inside you saying, I don't think this is what I want, even though that's what you've been aiming for.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that with family? And sometimes family's your number one supporter but your biggest critic.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that?
I think, look, I've always been a bit stubborn. So I think at the end of the day, I just said, this is what I love. And there's always a backup. Worst case scenario, I started doing, my property things and it didn't work or I didn't like it. I always, could always go back teaching, maybe not to the same school, but, I always had that as a backup anyway. So, yeah. But I think, deep down I knew that I needed to do it for myself. And sometimes you just have to back yourself.
Was there any good lessons learned early on in that process?
I think I think in life, whenever we step out of our comfort zone, it's always going to be uncomfortable. But when I look back in my life, the decisions that I made when I was uncomfortable have always been the most rewarding or life-changing decisions that I've ever made. So I think, you just have to, back yourself and then support yourself with people that also are going to encourage you. So I guess that was the other side of it. I did have a great network of friends who were doing the same thing as us or similar things with us with property, and they were encouraging us to, to step out and grow.
So then how did you go from sub-pro to multiply?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Subpro was originally actually Abel started Subpro. So I was doing buyer's agency work independently. So he was running Subpro, which again came from people asking us, can you help us? So they would see that we were doing subdivisions and they said, look, can you actually help us run our project? So Abel came up with a name, which was Subdivision Professionals, and then it was shortened to Subpro. Came up with a logo. So, which was fun until I wanted to join forces and basically have it, all of our property expertise under one umbrella. So having a buyer's agency underneath Sub-Pro, which sounds like sub-professional, really didn't sit well with me. So,
well, my father-in-law's electrical business is called Electrical All Sorts.
Yep.
And a client said when we rocked up, she's like, I wasn't expecting what was going to show up. And I'd never put that two together. So I understand what you mean by that. And, it's branding's a weird one, isn't it? And I even when I was trying to name the show, I was coming up with these crazy names and then trying to keep it relevant to the audience. And it's a good point. Sub-Pro, and look, and this is where it gets confusing, right? Look at Apple.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yes.
But everyone knows it, right? Yeah. Nike with the swoosh, it's I still can't get my head around how it works, but sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
So Nat, Multiply is established. What was
Mm-hmm.
the vision behind the brand Multiply? You've gone from Sub-Pro Realty.
Yep.
Multiply's now there with subdivision with Abel's side of house.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing the buyer's agency side. When did it start to grow more than that?
So I guess it was when we looked at what we actually do. So I believe we help people to multiply their wealth, or multiply their cash flow via properties, or multiply their portfolio. The reason we do what we do is because we know what it gave us and what it enabled us to do. So, being a school teacher initially and Abel working for Telstra, we had, I had big goals, big dreams, wanted to live a certain lifestyle, wanted to give my children certain opportunities, like travel and things like that. And property is what enabled us to do that. Property is what enabled us to, move from home to home, go on certain holidays. I remember buying, one of my first brand new cars that I ever bought and paying cash for it, and that was out of a property deal. So I know what what effect it can have on someone's life. And so that's why we do what we do, to help people, because I've also seen the other side. So I've seen the side when the market does crash or people have bought properties in certain areas and, there's a mining downturn, for instance, and I've seen what impact that can have on people's lives. So I guess the reason we continue to do it is because we know that if we can help and just give someone a little bit of guidance, then hopefully it'll make their life easy.
So Multiply now does subdivision,
yes,
run by Abel, the buyer's agency from your side, the leasing, property management, sales. There's a suite of expertise within the business. If someone was considering to use Multiply, reach out to any of their services, and if we were to start with subdivision, in Rockingham, I know that there's been some zoning changes. There's a couple of other suburbs that you might be familiar with. What are you seeing at the moment, 2026? What are we, the 10th of June? What's your feel of the market right now? What's happening?
I think there's it's a little bit of a mix. So there's definitely been more inquiries in relation to subdivisions, probably over the last month. I also think with the budget and the incentive for some investors, if they want to build, subdivisions probably going to be something that people will consider if they do have a big block of land. So I think subdivisions over the next year and a bit will be sought after, and people will subdivide their property and then potentially build on them. In relation to the rest of the market, I think our supply is still low. We're sitting at 5,000 properties on the market, so supply is still low. I do think the top end of the market, from what I'm seeing, is taking a little bit longer now to move. So I think with that, the demand's still going to be in the midsection, so where the median house price is, and I don't see that section slowing at all. But whenever there's uncertainty, we tend to find people will sit on the fence a little bit. And I think for the next probably 3 full months, that's what I'm expecting due to the government, the budget, and people just trying to get their head around it. I mean, some accountants haven't even got their head around it and how it's going to impact their clients. So I think there's still a bit of that to come.
I was literally on the phone this morning to my uncle, and I was chatting to him about the capital gains tax, and he said, "Can you explain it to me?" And I said, "No, because I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm actually confused as well."
Yeah.
I mean, and this is something that we talk about regularly in the industry, and even I don't understand it. So, I mean, how is the average Joe that isn't just spending every dying second of the day dealing with property or even finance? I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and even with the financing of properties now, that's also changed. So people that had pre-approvals, 2 months ago now need to go back and reapply in many cases.
Is that because of the interest rate increases or the negative
gearing?
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of uncertainty around in the market. Right. I think, it's going to be one of those times where we'll look back and we'll go, oh, remember this, and people were reacting this way or that way. There's always a way to do something. There's always a strategy that will work. And I'm a big believer of it doesn't matter what's happening in the market, you can still create wealth. It's just finding what strategy it is that you need to implement. So
that moves me on to my next question. What makes Multiply different?
I think what makes us different is because we're not just about one strategy. So we wouldn't have a client come in and say, oh, look, we think you should look at a house and land package, for instance, and that's all we do. We actually look at every single strategy. The other thing is we always look at how people can add value to their property. It's not about being reliant on the market. The market will go up, the market will go down sometimes, it will go sideways. But there are definitely better strategies that you can use depending on what the market is doing. And if you are able to add value, whether it be through a renovation, for instance, an extension, building a granny flat, subdividing, you're actually manufacturing growth. And if the market goes up, then you get a double whammy basically. So, yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges in running a business like Multiply?
Staff, Ryan.
Can you elaborate on that, please? Well, yeah. If anyone's not aware, I work with Natalie, and I think that was a dig at me.
I think it was.
Yeah.
No.
I did get Employee of the Month though. I'm the only sales rep.
One.
Yeah. I printed my own certificate up on the wall. Very proud of you.
Oh, gosh.
What's the biggest challenge, do you think?
I think the biggest challenge is just having to adapt. And when I say adapt, it's not just adapting to the market. The market continually changes. But it's just adapting to everything basically, people's sentiment, strategies that are going to work, not going to work. And also keeping abreast of government changes as well. So there's been a lot of changes within the subdivision space, and it's keeping up to date with that and continually educating yourself so that you can provide, or we can provide our clients a great service because we've got all the information.
Yeah. A good point on that. As a real life example, I sold a property in Rockingham maybe a few months ago, 1,000 square metre block. It had a 3x1 on it, 1967 home. And the purchaser has bought the property and there's enough land that he can build another dwelling. He's going to build a 3x2. We just sold a 3x2 in Rockingham on the same land size for $1.225 million.
Yeah.
Once this is established, this new build, he's essentially got that house that he purchased for free. So he builds a 3x2, sells that for around $1 million, if not more, based on the last sales. Then has that other block that he can knock down, or he could just leave as getting that $700 a week rent he's getting. So there's opportunities there, and especially with the growth that's coming to Rockingham through AUKUS, Westport. There's a lot happening down that way, and you would be seeing it too.
Yeah, and there's amazing opportunities everywhere, but it's understanding the opportunities and it's knowing what you can and can't do, and also knowing if there's any not loopholes, but any way that you can make something that subdivisible that isn't subdivisible. So using variations. That's, I guess, a bit of the expertise that we bring to the table for our clients. We're able to sometimes find things that aren't being advertised to their true potential because the agent doesn't actually know, or it's using a variation.
Have you noticed since the government released the budget, have you noticed a difference in people coming to open homes?
I have. I wouldn't say a huge difference though. Most of my clients, are looking around that median house price or slightly lower. And I think that part of the market, there's still a demand because it's more affordable. Yeah. So I haven't seen a huge drop off, but I have noticed it's a little bit slower. I've also noticed those properties are staying on the market longer. Normally they'd be sold within that weekend. After the home open, the agent would call me and say, "Hey Nat, are you ready to put an offer in? We're presenting offers, this evening or Monday, first thing." Whereas I'm not getting those phone calls. It's, on the Wednesday or the Thursday during the week, they're having another home open and then presenting. So it seems to be slowing a little bit.
What do you think, was there a moment when you were moving from SubPro and building it into Multiply and then having all these other services that you now offer, was there ever a time where you thought, oof, this is a lot? This might or might not work?
Yes. There's always challenges, and we're always going to be faced with challenges. I don't know if you've noticed, my number plate is NJ08WA.
To be honest with you,
No?
I haven't
Okay.
looked.
So,
Am I meant to know what that means?
no, you're not.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to learn with everyone else.
So, '08,
All right.
global financial crisis.
Okay.
It was also the year that I turned 30.
Right. They say all things bad happen after 30. No, it's
Well,
true.
there you go.
You know what would be a great sponsor for the show? A receding hairline specialist.
Yes, please.
I tell you what, mate, I was looking in the mirror this morning. I was like, at what point do I stop putting on moisturiser and start conditioning with body lotion? Because my hair's just creeping back. Anyway, so shout out to anyone that does hair transplants. Please give us a call.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, so global financial crisis.
That's correct,
when
yeah.
so what was established is once you hit 30, that's it. It's all downhill.
That's it. Yes, it is all downhill. And my business partner at the time actually brought me the number plate because we were doing a large land subdivision.
Right.
And we'd sold all the blocks within 2 days. Our blocks we had, I think, 38 blocks all sold within 2 days. All cash offers. And then obviously had to put all the infrastructure in. And just prior to getting our titles, GFC hits. So all these people that had purchased our properties all of a sudden couldn't settle.
Oh, so do they pay a deposit and then the rest of it on settlement?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and normally the subdivision would take, 12 to 18 months to complete. No one could settle. Valuations were dropping. So we were getting them revalued and just seeing if they could, get a loan for it. But because the value kept dropping, we had to amend contracts. We didn't really want to, obviously we had the deposit, but in order to keep the deposit if they don't settle, you have to go through the court process and whatever else. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
The amount we would spend, So I also had a trip booked for Europe, so that was all paid for, ready to go, and then all of a sudden we had these 38 blocks that we couldn't.
That's a big debt.
Yes, and that's the other thing. So one of our mottos, which is why we actually do a lot of retain and subdivides for our client, because we do believe it's minimises risk. But one of the reasons we do that is because of this story.
So can you just break that down? So you retain the title?
No, retain the house.
Yep.
So if you've got a big block
Yep.
and you've got a house, we try and retain the house wherever possible. So that house you can rent out. So you're always receiving some form of income to help you. Then while you develop at the back, you've got that house, then you have the choice of 2 properties. Some of our clients will sell the old because of maintenance issues. Others will keep it and then build the new and then get all the depreciation and the negative gearing at the back.
Yeah.
So basically with the land that we had, we were at peak debt at that point in time because we had put all the infrastructure in, so there was roads, there was lights and all of that. No one could settle. And I remember sitting at the block one day going, oh my goodness, I can't go to Europe because I now have to resell these blocks. And ants are on this property and they're not paying rent. So our model is ants don't pay rent.
Okay.
Which is why we love the retain and subdivide.
Ants don't pay rent.
Ants don't pay rent, yes.
And what has that got to do with your number plate?
Global financial crisis, 2008. I missed out on my trip to Europe.
Right.
And we had to resell those blocks 8 times over, some of them. So it was an awful time, absolutely awful. Like I said, we're at peak debt at that point in time. And I remember Mum calling me and petrol prices were going up. And she said, oh, Natalie.
80 cents a litre?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
She's like, Natalie, petrol, it's so expensive. You really should be careful where you drive.
Yeah.
And I said, really? I said, petrol's the least of my issues. I said, I've got all these blocks, and if they don't settle, I said, I'm going to be homeless.
Yeah.
So 2008 was a tough year, but it also taught me that there's always a way.
Yeah.
There's always a way. And we're stronger than what we think sometimes. And also you have to apply those lessons. So a lot of the things and a lot of the ways that I look at property now, I do look at it from a risk perspective due to that, that time in my life.
So in the Perth property market now, is it still a good time to buy?
I think it's always a good time to buy. It's what you're buying. So looking at minimising your risk as much as possible. I'm looking at a lot of people that are building at the moment, and that does concern me a little bit, just due to the fact that when you look at what they're paying for the land and then the build price, you can buy an established property at a cheaper price. So they're going to be a negative equity potentially when it's complete. So that does worry me a little bit.
I seen a property in Rockingham sold just recently, 1.9 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a crazy price.
Yeah.
Not beachfront.
Yep.
It's a Ventura home. It was built in 2017. It sold in 2022, I believe, for $980, and then sold about 2 months ago for $1.9 million.
Wow.
And I said to the agent, I said, "What's going on there? Like, that's a big jump." And she said, the cost to build.
Yeah.
She said, if you were to build this same house right now, back when it was built 2017, it was probably going to cost $470,000 for this double-story home. Now that same build would probably cost you close to $1 million.
Yep.
And this isn't a top spec home.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a very basic fixtures and fittings. I still think it probably sold for more than
too much.
what it was worth.
Yeah.
But sometimes when it's someone's dream house, sometimes budget, if the finances are there, it doesn't really matter. But I couldn't believe it, Nat. $1.9 million.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable. I can't fathom that sort of money, especially borrowing that sort of money. The repayments on that would just be unbelievable. So, okay, it's always a good time to buy. I really want to focus on, if I can, first home buyers because I think they're scared, rightfully so. What do you think the biggest mistake first home buyers are doing at the moment?
I think first home buyers are very emotional for starters. And when emotion comes into play, you do make silly decisions, or people can make silly decisions. And so I think a lot of these first home buyers, they feel like they've missed out, or they potentially have missed out in the past, and that's, fueling them to want to jump in. And I think they're overcommitting. They're not, I've spoken to a few young kids in their, early 20s who are all excited about buying their first home, and they're not blinking at getting a mortgage that's $1 million.
Wow.
That would absolutely, scare the crap out of me, but and they're in their 20s. They've got their whole life ahead of them, and I don't think they realise the commitment that once they're in, the commitment that they will need to undertake for many, many, many years. So, so I guess that worries me a bit with first home buyers. And like I said, a lot of them are going into new estates as well. So they're paying a premium for land. They're paying a premium to build. And those areas are full of either investors, and will be full of either investors now because of the budget, and first home buyers. So if we do have a correction in the market, I think those areas are going to be the ones that are going to suffer the most, because investors will, sell off their stock. So if these first home buyers do have a negative equity position, they're not going to be that they can't just sell it, because then what do? They don't have a deposit for anything else. So it puts them in a tricky position. I have seen some first home buyers go into partnerships, like with their mates. Or brothers and sisters going together and buying an older house where they can add value, whether it be through renovation or whether it be through a subdivision and then build. So there has been, quite a few more of those, which I think is great. I think they need to be looking at ways they can actually physically add value.
Well, you bought a property, an awesome property in Rockingham about 12 months ago, and I remember we got it for about $560,000, and it needed a little bit of work, yeah, sure. That work's now being completed at around $150,000.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that property would sell today for $1 to $1.1 million.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, there's something to that. If you've got a brother, a sister, someone that you're close with, and there's a bit of trust there, you could go into a joint venture.
Yep.
I actually haven't considered that, but that's not a bad idea.
I think it's a great idea for the young ones, but with any strategy, there's always an element of risk. So the risk is obviously who are you going to partnership with?
Yeah.
So that's very important. And also the strategies that, I was just talking about, the value add strategies, you actually do need cash to do them, which is the reason why a lot of first home buyers can't, or believe they can't do it, is because they don't have the cash. So, if they could do something with their parents, and their parents can help them out with the cash component, they split profits, or the parents get a return on the money they've put in, it could be a real win-win for both parties.
What do you think, what opportunities are people overlooking, do you think, in today's market?
I think some people, when they're looking at their investment, they don't reassess it, often enough. So I think we should always reassess our portfolio at least once every year. And then once we've reassessed it, look at how we can maximise our return on it. So I think there's properties currently that, might be better suited as Airbnbs where the client or the owner of the property could get a much better return on their property and they haven't even considered it. Or they have considered it and just think it's too hard, without actually knowing the ins and outs of it. I also think there's opportunities, like I've brought a few properties down in that Rockingham and Hillman area on big blocks. They can't actually be developed, but how can you maximise that value of that property? And it could just be putting a little granny flat at the back. And, I've had clients who've put dongas at the back of their properties and rented those out. I've even
in some shires you don't need approval. Is that right?
Yeah. Unless you're building. So, yeah. So there's definitely opportunities for people to maximise what they already have, and I think that's probably the opportunity that people miss because they have it.
Yeah.
They think it's it's done, and they're not looking at it and going, okay, well, how can I actually make this better? I've had clients that I've purchased properties for that were 4x2s, and we've converted those into 3x1, a 3x1 and a 1x1 with separate entry.
What do you think one of the biggest mistakes sellers are making at the moment?
I think some sellers, and like I said, the markets, the segments in the market are performing differently. But I think what I am seeing is properties that are being priced potentially too high, and then they're being obviously reduced, after 2 weeks because they're still on the market. I've also seen the opposite of that as well. I've seen properties that have been priced quite cheaply and then they've had, multiple offers and then they go above, which is fine. But I think in this market, you have to be really careful with what you price a property at. And I think if sellers still believe that they can get top dollar for their property and they're pricing it at that, I think that potentially may not work in their best interest.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because if an agent comes in and says, Natalie, I think your property's worth $1 million based on my assessment. And the next agent comes in and goes, oh, Natalie, I think you could get offers from 1.1.
Yeah.
Naturally, you're going to want to go with that person.
100%,
You're like,
yeah.
well, it's a tricky one because often it's the biggest liar gets the job, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, that's a hard one to navigate. So, and this is why it always comes back, and I've said this to you before, you have to have trust in the person.
Yeah.
And in a market, it's so rapidly evolving. I'm not really sure if the data is something that you can just really bank on because what things are selling for in real life isn't reflective of what RP data is saying. I had a property in Aurelia, one around the corner sold for $950, right? The house that we listed was, in my view, better, but for whatever reason, that was a black sheep. That was, I don't know what happened. I don't know who bought it, but it must have worked in because that was probably $100,000 more than what it probably should have sold for. But then the vendor goes, well, Ryan, that property's sold for this much. Like, our house is better. So one sale doesn't mean that's now the baseline of every sale. And then, that's how comparative market analysis works, right?
It is, yes.
You sell a property for $800,000, so I go, well, I think it's better. I'm going to sell for $810. I sell mine for $810. Now he gets $820. Like, it's...
Yeah. And I think too, like, because we have seen the market move so quickly, a lot of agents, I believe, have been pricing their sale price that they're going to get as higher because of the trajectory of the market. Yeah. So I think that's had a play in it, and now we're not seeing that steep growth. And we've got these properties that are now being priced quite high and then sitting there a little bit longer.
Yeah. And marketing, I'll always bang on marketing. You've got to market properly.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's not being utilised the most is videos. I think gone are the days of just photos because photos, have you ever looked at a property on realestate.com and then gone to the property and gone, what is this? Yeah. There's like an epic amount of editing going on. I think videos are great because you can walk through the property before you even get there. Yeah. And you probably answer a lot of questions. So, if you're listening and you're considering selling with Multiply, do a video. do a video.
No, videos are great.
How do you balance business and family? You are an entrepreneur. You are a successful businesswoman. You are a loving wife to your crazy husband, Abel.
I don't know if he'd say that.
Your children, I know you're very close with your family. How do you juggle it all? Living in your $7 million property on the water. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Look, life is a juggle, and I don't think there ever is balance, because once we have balance, there is no movement.
Right.
So we need to be out of kilt in order to get momentum. So I think it's just, I know what's important to me. As long as I'm spending time in areas that I love, then I'll continue to do that. And then when I do feel, everyone takes a stock take at some point, and I go, okay, well, maybe I should be spending more time in this area of my life. Yeah. So I guess the short answer is I try.
Yeah.
I try. It's hard. It's always a challenge. Yeah.
What does success mean to you now compared to what it meant to you 10 years ago?
Success to me now is having a good, close relationship with, important people. And it doesn't...
What? What's so funny?
He was like smiling.
What?
I'm like...
Hello? Jeez, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Right.
No, so I just think for me now, success is really just spending time with people you want to spend time with.
Yeah.
It's appreciating the small things in life. I mean, we're surrounded by beauty every single day. And I think if we can spend more time appreciating that, we're going to be happier. Yeah. Family, friends, that's success to me these days. And health.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What advice would you give to someone that's wanting to start their own business?
I think if someone wants to start their own business, learn as much as you can. I'd always go back to education. Start with education and then find yourself a mentor. So find someone who's doing what you want to do, or find someone who emulates who you want to be, and spend time with them. If you can't physically spend time with them, read their books if they've got books, or, audios and things like that. But if you can spend time with them, spend as much time with them. Yeah.
What's next for Natalie and Multiply?
Look, I think I'm excited about, the budget, because I do think there's lots of opportunities. I also want to focus more on how I can help my clients to generate extra revenue through their property. A lot of our clients already have a portfolio, but how can we maximise that portfolio, and how can I assist them with reassessing their portfolio? Because I know I do it with my own portfolio. I'm not sure that my clients do that, where they would check in and see how well it's tracking and what they can do to improve. So that's an area that I want to focus on and help my clients to see if there is anything that they can do to grow their portfolio.
And if anyone wants to reach out to you, Natalie, how's the best way to get in contact with you or the team at Multiply?
Yeah, well, they can just call the office, or alternatively my mobile if they have my mobile, or email. I get back to all my clients.
And you got a website too, Multiply?
We do, yeah. So the
Multiply Property Group.
Yep.
.com.au. All right, Nat, in closing, Natalie, if the listeners were to take one thing away from today's podcast, what would it be?
I think remembering where you've come from, so always being humble, and keeping true to yourself. So if you love something, if you're passionate about something, so for myself, being passionate about helping people change their lives, helping them on that journey, giving them guidance, that's really important to me, and that fills my cup. So making sure you always remember why, your why. Why did you get into your business? And then remembering the people that have supported you during that time, and spending time doing the things that you love, because there's no point us doing anything or having all the money, if we're not with the people that we love or doing the things that we love. Life can be very short, is very short. I do believe that we should spend as much time doing the things that we love with the people that we love. And if we can do that, we're successful. I think that's the goal. So
nice work. Well, Natalie, thank you for coming onto the show. And if anyone's looking to buy, sell, subdivide, lease, manage property, reach out to Natalie and the team. You can find them online, social media as well. It was great to see you. Thanks for coming in, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.